All right, this is the January 31st, 2024 SIG DevEx community meeting here for us, or SIG meeting, whatever you want to call it. So we are pretty close to the 1.15 ship date, and we're making progress on that milestone. We are held off a little bit, and you European folks can correct me if there's anything I haven't heard of this morning yet, Pacific time. But we are holding off on creating the release branch, which essentially then starts the feature freeze. We're waiting for a PR to put back the server-side apply updates for the claim controller behind a feature flag, so people need to opt into it to get that behavior change. Nick, I think, has a PR open for it, but I doubt that it was not merged or anything overnight, right? Okay. So
yeah.
Okay, good. So the release date here is so it's a little like the release schedule is a little odd, I think, right now, because we're kind of like holding off on the feature freeze, and then we're supposed to do code freeze on Friday, 2 days from now, but we haven't really even started feature freeze with the release branch yet. So there's a little bit of flux going on here, but what I want to avoid is going too long past the February 12th date that we've already kind of pushed a little bit back to already. So maybe we'll do a little bit of a shorter code freeze since we've got some baking time already while we're kind of waiting for feature freeze to start. Like we'll have to be very cautious or very conscious about what's open, what testing we've be done, and just make a good decision there. But either way though, for this SIG, we have a little more time here still, basically. That doesn't mean to cram things in, not necessarily, and increase the risk that's already there, but we've got time. We're still working. Let's keep going. So were there, for reviews, oh no, actually, let's look at the epic and catch up on the status there. So one thing I'm super happy about and very proud of everybody's effort here, this SIG did a great job, I think, on driving 100% of the features, the top line features that we wanted to accomplish in this milestone are all, merged. They're in there. That's great work. So awesome for everybody on the efforts on that one. We kind of split all these up and everybody delivered some, and it was fantastic. So we're in, I would not probably, we could talk about it. I would probably not take more features right now, considering like any minute we want to, we get server-side apply out, feature flag merged in, and start feature freeze, officially release branch and stuff. So I wouldn't advocate for us doing any more big feature stuff, but there is still, prioritized things here in the list that we haven't tackled yet. So there's still more interesting things to do probably. Lovro and Philippe, do you want to give me any like additional perspective on the epic and what we plan for 1.15 from your guys' end?
Maybe a point I added to the agenda is about a missing feature in Crossplane Beta Validate. The second one, Crossplane Beta Validate support for X Kubernetes. I forgot an S validations missing. We thought we were already covering that use case. Actually, it turns out it's a different validator you need to actually run.
And Philip's gone.
The cell rules defined as a Kubernetes and sneak it into this release. And that's a follow-up PR and issue we don't currently have in the issue. So either we
I think I got most of that, Philippe.
Yeah.
I think I got most of that. So here's a question for you. On the validate PR, here let's try to be thorough about this real quick. Let me see if I can find this. Because I was kind of curious myself about the scope here. Okay, so this is the PR. I had a comment on here about, oh yeah, here we go. There we go, here we go. So when I first initially tested it, like most of the scenarios that I tried were not captured in the specific validation that the API server or library does for us. So like this stuff here of like, okay, hey, like this, like taking an existing field and spelling it wrong, putting a good field but messing up the indentation of it, adding a field that doesn't even exist, like those kind of types of incorrect manifests here are not captured by the default like Open API v3 schema validation stuff that we're doing right now. So Edsky kind of pointed me to here of like, okay, this is what currently does get captured and validated by the API server. And to do so, like having missing a required field that's specified as required in the Open API v3 schema, having something wrong with the enum, too many items in a list or too many properties or something like that, having a wrong type, bool, it's supposed to be an int or something like that, right? So those are the things that are captured there already. And then it seemed like there was more effort that would be required and more additional validation logic to capture the type of things that I was first trying there. So there's that of like stuff that users are very likely to do that we see people do all the time of like, oh, the wrong indentation. There goes 6 hours of my life because I didn't indent it correctly. Like that kind of shit, right? So here's my question with that context. The X Kubernetes validation stuff, that is another type of validation, like extensions validation sort of stuff, right? That is something that the user can specify when they're defining their XRDs or their managed resources. Like that it could be extension validation stuff that's added at that time. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like some field should be greater than 2 or should match some pattern or something. It's a more powerful language to define this kind of checks.
Is it done in cell stuff? Is that the language you specify it in?
Yeah, exactly.
Language. Got it. Okay, so then there's still this class of validation that we want to do that's like wrong indentation level, wrong field spelling, typo in the field, whatever. That is not covered by supporting X Kubernetes validation stuff. Is that correct?
I would assume yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry. But it would be good for sure. Yeah, we can hear you, but sometimes you just get like 10-second break.
Right, sweet. So then would it make sense then, Lovro and Philippe, that okay, if like all of this validation stuff, all like the whole surface area is useful, right? So if there is support that is easy enough to add in, given where we're at in the milestone of like, hey, we might do feature freeze today. If the server-side apply feature flag gets merged in, we're gonna go right into feature freeze and that's it. If it's easy enough to get in, sounds reasonable. But it sounds like the validation that I most prefer is maybe the hardest one to do because there's the least amount of built-in support that we can leverage for it. Is that like, so we wouldn't be able to get Jared's preferred validation in. That's not going to happen in this milestone. We'll do it next milestone, but we maybe could sneak in X Kubernetes validation stuff. Is that an accurate way to describe this?
I didn't spend much time checking how much effort, but standing from what Edsky wrote, I'd say so. But yeah, we can prioritize the easiest thing to get in and see if we manage to handle it.
Got it. Yep. And dude, what you said right there, I think is with where we are in the milestone, the right prioritization call to make. It's no longer about the most impactful. It's about like what can we accomplish, and it has the least amount of like risk and churn and regressions and stuff that would be sneaking in last minute. It's more like, okay, what's feasible to do right now? It might not be the most impactful or the most powerful or the most used, but what's feasible to still do in the milestone is the right prioritization call.
Yeah, and I would add that it is used because all the object generated providers are using CL rules, for example, for finding out the init provider fields, checking like if the init provider field is set or the for provider field is set. So for some resources, the required fields are not anymore required by schema, but are required by the CLL rules. So we're using them
interesting, Lovro. So all of those, the object generated providers that use the like CL stuff, like rules there, that is this, like they do that with like via this X Kubernetes validation extension stuff too. That's all the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Sick. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So that's not like, okay. So that's not then that maybe somebody out there is writing their XRDs and they're choosing to add this additional validation stuff. Like, if they take the initiative to do it, it's actually like, oh, the object providers that are widely used with lots of resources are using this as part of their, generated resources.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be for sure needed.
Okay, that's great. Okay, that's really helpful to know, man. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, so let's capture this. Where you want to reduce risk.
By the way, Philip, you're now much more.
Yeah, I moved 20 meters nearer to the modem. It was a trick. I don't know why. For a while it worked pretty well from what I call office, and now it just doesn't. Or maybe no one told me it was broken.
Time to move the modem.
There we go. And then the type of validation, typos and implementations. So let's. Cool. Okay, cool. I think I got that all captured. So that all makes sense then. Anything else that folks wanted to add to that then that wasn't captured here? Okay. Okay, sweet. And then yeah, okay, so then some of these issues at the bottom here, I haven't seen them come up. Either I literally haven't seen them come up at all, like this one, or I haven't heard people complain about the experience with these ones anymore. So I think this pretty much was a prioritized list. So the stuff at the bottom, feel free to, it's at the bottom for a reason. And then soon, so probably like next meeting, or I don't know, maybe we'll catch up before that. But we'll want to start talking about 1.16 priorities. We do have a 1.16 tracking issue. And there is some stuff that's in there. It hasn't been thoroughly prioritized, but it certainly gives an idea of like things that we want to continue investing in areas we want to go. So we should talk more about that, not too long after we ship 1.15. So then were there any open PRs then for 1.15 that we wanted to discuss more? Philippe, I quickly saw a comment from you this morning about maybe we don't need to take into account default registry for dependency resolution stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The point is, we discussed it with Ezgi, and actually the whole initial purpose of not including the default registry is because, like, in the log file, we want to use as ID for stuff, for dependencies, whatever someone defined in the first place. So as long as a user is consistent, there is an example in the comment I left. As long as a user is consistent, everything is already working fine, and not taking and handling that properly would mean we would need to inject into the log file some runtime configuration, which could change. And so how would we handle changes in that case? Should we? Doesn't make much sense. So given that the initial thought was that, we feel like it's okay to adhere to that. I didn't see the comment from Bob, actually. I still have to read that. But yeah, as long as a user is consistent, it feels like the initial example brought by Hasan was kind of ill-formed. And yes, we should probably document it. We should say you should try to stick to fully defined dependencies and fully defined packages. So with the registry in it, and you should probably not use the default registry at all, except if you are using it for everything, because otherwise mixing the two things is kind of a recipe for disaster.
Okay,
But then,
interesting. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, so it's not a really a supported use case to mix and match of this dependency is explicit, this other one's uses the default.
we could support that by saying, like, let's forget about existing log packages. Let's say we properly handle migration from whatever we are doing right now to the new format. We could say, let's strip registries altogether from dependencies and from packages we put in the log file, and let's use as identifier of whatever resource we want just the image without the registry. So that's the identifier. Like in Go, you get github.com / whatever. It's a fully qualified identifier and namespace identifier. So there is no possibility of conflict. In this case, there will be possibility of conflict because there is no guarantee that I'm not going to write my own provider Helm, which is called Crossplane contrib, because I'm using another registry actually, and then it's called provider Helm, and it's actually a different thing from the Crossplane contrib provider Helm hosted by Docker Hub or the marketplace. So we could do that, but it feels like the wrong thing to do. So it's probably better to suggest, as we already are doing, like also in the original PR, there was a mention to the fact that people should use either fully qualified packages or know what they're doing and use it wherever. But obviously, as soon as you start using stuff packages created by other people, it's harder to handle it properly. And so you end up doing skip dependencies resolution, and you do it by hand, which is totally fine, but it's missing on some features we provide.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That sounds reasonable. I'm going to process that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure.
But one of the things that will be certainly useful here, and you mentioned it yourself, I think, is like in terms of all the documentation we're writing here, like if someone gets into this scenario, how do they clean it up? How do they get out of it? You know, like how do they resolve that scenario? I think will be really, really useful to understand, like what's the procedure for that, so we can include it in all the other documentation that we're writing here, so that, you know, anybody who does have a rough time with this change can get themselves out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess so. So we're on the topic of default register change. So let's just stick on that topic, I suppose. So yeah, so just is kind of a note here that there is. So yes, I think we're gonna resolve this one as like maybe won't fix or not planned, whatever. And then we want to have, like we have to do all the writing now, basically, right? Like the release notes, the docs update, maybe a blog post, all that sort of stuff. We've already gotten some help with testing as well. Like I've gotten feedback from Christopher Haar with his test cases that he was doing. So I think that one's somewhat covered now. I want to still get some help from Yuri as well. But most of the stuff that's left here is the writing. So I pinged Pete again today to kind of check in on how he's recovering from COVID. I think he's back full time now and wants to wrap up some of the API docs stuff he was doing, the generating docs for the APIs in Crossplane, and then like we're gonna sync on how we can tackle all this with the other priorities we have as well. So I guess the only note then, Philippe, for you, since I think you're kind of on point for the release here, is making sure that we get an RC build completed once we get into the release branch and feature free starts, that we get an RC build that we can do more testing on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we could cut an RC branch, an RC right now before adding the feature flag, but it would be with a big asterisk saying we did change some behavior and we are expecting to revert it and make it off by default in the actual release. So it doesn't make much sense. But if we want,
Yeah,
we can.
I would keep pushing on getting that done.
Exactly.
Feature free flag in there, and then cut the release branch. I think that's still the right thing to do. And then there were some folks requesting too, if when we have an RC build, if it would be possible to do essentially do an RC build as well for the UXP distribution, if that's a thing we can do.
Sure.
Cool, man. Is cutting an RC build, is that officially part of the Zoom windows on my screen? Is that officially?
It's
Oh, it's in the
anymore.
release repo, isn't it?
Yep.
I like that.
Because everybody went through this.
Jared, you idiot. Is it? Okay, here we go.
I can't remember.
Is RC build part of this?
I can cross.
That's on master.
This branch.
Maybe not.
There was some in-flight changes from Hassan that were lost in the move from the old repo to this
the
one.
template.
So it might be in there.
Oh, okay.
I'll double check because cool. I remember seeing the RC thing coming.
Yeah, I remember
somewhere.
that too.
Yeah, probably
Guess
as
it
an
never got
open PR
merged.
we never merged. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, sweet. So that seems like that's what's left with default registry stuff. I'll work with Pete to sync up on how we can get all the docs and the release notes and everything written. Okay, sweet. Philippe, you have another issue here you want to talk about?
No, that one is on Lovro. Both of the last ones. Yeah. Oh. No, sorry. Yeah, that one is on me. Yeah, this one is an easy thing where it's actually just about logging in a few places where we have a few to-dos and logging to standard there is already good enough to avoid the confusion with the actual output to standard out and the logs. So we could add some debug logging to render and it will just work. If anyone has some spare cycle, that's a low-hanging fruit to get in.
Okay, maybe awesome. I'll take that. I just want to write up my docs for the features, and then I can check this one.
Nice, Lovro. Yeah, so it's on the list already for improvements and stuff. So yeah, that sounds perfectly good that we can keep tackling that list and Lovro can get to that. Then that sounds awesome. Cool. Okay, sweet. And then I just wanted to confirm with you guys. So I think Lover, you had added a comment about, hey, is this already done? We solved this. And I thought the same thing the other day as well. But I think this was a different scenario of where wait, or correct me if I'm wrong, that this was like validating directly wait, hold
Yeah,
on. Was this wait?
I
Was this
think it was
implemented?
could take an XR or a folder of XRs. So it was actually the other way around. It was to validate an XRD or multiple
Based on
XRs
XR?
against an XRD.
Is that
Don't we do
covered
already?
though by like
I think it's covered.
the general case of, hey, you can have a directory of extension schemas. Maybe
Yeah.
that's, you know, CRDs, maybe that's XRDs, and then you could give a general, here's a file of resources, compare
Yeah.
those to the general extension schemas I've given you, and that would cover this guy here of
Yeah.
give an XRD and an XR.
And if you want to validate the XR, you do the flag thing. Include full XR, right? And then that's
No,
validated.
that's on the render.
Right, it's on the render.
It's to
Oh yeah,
get
when you're piping
on the
output of
validate, it's
render.
immediately
yeah,
done.
it should just work. We can double check, but it should already be covered. With the caveats we discussed earlier about the stuff
It's
not
part of the
covered.
general experience. Yeah, exactly. And,
Yeah.
and like the type of like like this, exactly. Like this one here would not be covered. But
Exactly.
that's like in general, we like for all of our validation, we need to kind of improve that scenario. So yeah, okay, yeah, Lovro, I think you might be right. Sorry for doubting you, Lovro. I shouldn't have done that, man.
No, I doubt myself. That's why I asked you to confirm. I was just going through the tickets before the meeting and checking. Like, I noticed these two are kind of like we could solve it. Like the second one.
Cool. Okay. Fantastic. And then Lovro, this is you.
Yeah. This is about like initializing configurations. And the ticket was about maybe making it, nice for users with asking them what stuff you want to put in and so on. So now we can now we can offload that from the CLI to the template repo. So the template repo can just initially just create those like 3 yums that are needed, like configuration yum, Crossplane yum, I don't remember which ones. And then we can work on the init script to make it more interactive.
Yes, dude, I think that makes plenty of sense given that we have a set of functionality that, enables these general type of scenarios. Then to have that, functionality, that feature, cover this scenario as well. Perfect sense. So then we would have to create a template repo for this type of configuration stuff, right? And then create some sort of, init script to be able to do that work too. That's what we
Yeah.
Oh, and then add it as like a known template to the CLI.
Exactly. This thing we can do, maybe we can sneak it into 1.15 to sneak in the known templates.
Sneak it.
And then, just like I don't know if I have rights to create Crossplane contrib repos.
Oh,
I will have to check.
Yeah, let me know if you need a repo created. I'll get you. I'll just put you as a maintainer on it, and you can start driving after that.
Okay. Yeah.
If you want to take this on, but yeah, this is in the list, I think, as well. I think it was a nice to have. But like, this is definitely something that I run into all the time. I'm like, okay, sweet. I want to write a composition, or I want to write an XRD. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the docs and like copy one from there and paste it and do that sort of thing.
Configuration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I do that. I basically go to our docs and like copy and paste and do like some janky manual thing every time I want to do this. I kind of do it
I think
somewhat
probably
frequently too.
most people do that.
Yeah, exactly,
without
dude.
a nice generating tool. But
Yeah, so
hopefully
I
they can make
definitely
it better.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely have a thumbs up for like that is something I think would be useful, 100% useful. And the approach seems reasonable to use the functionality we built. Let's leverage it and build that feature with that, or build that experience with that. Total sense. All right, cool. Anything else then on the agenda for you folks?
Nope.
All right. Well, sweet. That was a productive conversation as it always is. And hopefully by the next time we meet, we will have shipped 1.15. That's the goal. Sweet. All right, cool. Well, thanks guys. Good to see all y'all.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.